number 3 is why you can't lose weight, specifically why you can't lose fat. So why can't people lose weight? Why they complain they can't, get unfat, but that's really just the question. Why people can't lose weight? Why you can't lose weight?
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
John.
Yeah. You want me to start? Cool. So me, being a coach, I always like look at the person and I see there's multiple things that go into this. So many things.
Yeah, and you
So
see this all the time. I'm not coaching people anymore, but you see this all the time. So go ahead.
yeah. So one thing's for certain, natty or not, clients who have more muscle, they burn fat a lot easier and faster. So if you have no muscle, which most people who watch the channel have some muscle, the more muscle you have, the easier it is for you to burn fat. You're going to be burning more calories at rest, etc. Because we burn a lot of our calories at rest, and that goes into some different topics. So like a lot of people, they overestimate their activity level. Like for me right now, I'm just lifting weights. I do cardio sometimes, but I'm pretty much just lifting, and my workouts lately have been pretty short. So I can't eat insane amount of calories because I'll put on fat, because my workouts right now are like 45 to an hour minute, to an hour, 60-minute workouts, intense. But I used to train a lot more. I used to train. I used to do cardio. I used to do boxing all in one day, and I would be able to eat more calories and stay lean. Now that I'm mostly lifting, I don't want to overestimate my activity level and eat too many calories. So when you're calculating your macros and your calories, be careful not to overeat, because a lot of people are overeating and they think that they're training so hard when they're really not. They're just doing a couple of curls every day. So we got to take that into consideration, the overestimating the activity level. Also, about hormones, your GH increases when you sleep. So you have to make sure you're getting enough sleep. Lately, I've been working from home, thank God, and I'm able to get 7, 8 hours of sleep a night, and it's making a world of difference. I could feel it. I'm training
Yeah.
hard. The
Yep.
nutrients that I'm eating is going to the muscles. So getting enough sleep. When I was training clients at the gym, waking up super early, I was getting 4 or 5 hours of sleep, and it was just terrible. Like I was hungry all the time. I was overeating, and I wasn't able to train as hard. So get enough sleep so you can train hard, and so your growth hormone increases when you sleep. Also, with your caloric intake, make sure you're not eating too many calories, because, like I said, a lot of guys think that they're training harder than they are. Um, you got to look at certain things like portion sizes too. Like I don't think you need to eat 6, 7 meals a day, but if you're bodybuilding, you might want to spread it into about four, so your body metabolizes it a little bit better. Um, Maybe you're not eating enough protein. Maybe you're eating too many carbohydrates. You gotta take all these things into consideration. Um, and then what we talked about in the last video, Seth, uh, we talked about hormones and medications. Make sure that the medications you're not taking, or that you are taking, are not affecting your fat loss, like birth control, ladies. And for guys, make sure that your testosterone levels are on point. Like go see a doctor who specializes in this, because we are living in times where guys have less testosterone. That's a proven fact. So get your testosterone levels checked. Get all the full hormone panels, so you check your thyroid and stuff. So if you have your hormones in check, you get enough sleep, you work out, and like I said, guys, you calculate your macros and calories, or you could do what me and Seth do lots of times: is go high protein, low carbohydrates, because at least we're taking away carbohydrates, it's taking away calories. But also, don't overestimate your activity level. A lot of you guys you think you're training 3, 4 hours in the gym, but me and Seth could probably smoke you guys in the gym, in 45 minutes to an hour. So make sure you're training hard. Make sure that you have enough muscle to you're burning calories at rest, and make sure you're getting enough sleep. And that combination, along with your hormones being on point, will lose weight. I mean, I the only time I've seen somebody not lose weight is when something's off, like the hormones or the sleep or the inconsistency. I think your body goes really good with consistency. Like if you're on a diet, if you're on a meal plan that you stick to, like the carnivore diet, Steph, or like a diet that you stick to on a regular basis, your body synthesizes it well. Your digestion's better. Your body knows what's coming. if you're all over the place and you're eating out and doing different things, it's going to be hard for your body to like simplify those nutrients in your body to like perform better and optimize everything. Yeah, that's kind of what I have to say.
Yeah, well, that was really, really good. So thank you for that. That'll, that's great. Great information for everybody. And that's probably, yeah, thank you for that. That was great.
Yeah,
A lot of roundhouse information. So you guys can thank Coach Johnny for that.
yeah.
I'm gonna try to keep mine I'm gonna try to keep mine short. I know I've been, going off a lot, just into all going into all the details, but I'll just tell you guys this. The single most important thing in terms of, and this is not what I know this is not what you guys are going to expect me to say, but the single most important thing when it comes to the single reason you can't lose weight and you're fat comes down to one thing. The single most important thing, human growth hormone levels in the body. Okay. That's the single most important thing when you're talking about you're fat or you can't lose weight. That's the single most important thing is what your HGH levels are at. Okay. And
Wow.
no, I'm not telling you guys to, eat trash and do this, and don't work out. But in terms of, if you look at this way, I look at kids that, they eat trash, they don't work out, and they're skinny. Yes, genetics plays a role, but the most important thing we're talking about across the board that you can change is human growth hormone. So the number one important thing, because human growth hormone literally attaches right onto the fat cell. It says release the stored fatty acids in the bloodstream so you can burn them in the first place. So that's why. So human growth hormone has a twofold action where it binds the fat cell and tells it to release the stored fatty acids, and it also stops the fat cell literally from storing fat. So it's twofold. So the single most important reason that you can't lose weight is HGH level, regardless of training, diet, and everything else. So I got to get that out of the way because I'm just I'm plain and simple, just telling you guys how it is. Okay. So, and that's why, when you're 18, guess what? When you're 18, you can get away with eating a lot of trash and not be a fat slob. Well, guess what? When you're 30 years old, you eat the same way when you're 18, assuming metabolism and everything else is the same. Guess what? You're going to get fat. Why? Because it's your HGH levels are cut in half, literally. Okay. So again, I'm not telling you guys to neglect training and eating healthy and everything else, but I'm just telling you, I'm laying it out on the line why, the biggest thing in terms of fat loss. So that's HGH.
That's huge. That's huge.
Yeah. So it's just not.
Yeah.
So yeah, because people wonder, oh man, when I was young, it's not because you were young. You have the same exact body. The same reason is because HGH directly tells your cells to release fat, and it okay. Not only does it HGH bind and directly release stored fatty acids, but it also stops your fat cells when you're drinking sodas and eating pizza. It's literally stopping your fat cells from storing it. So it's a huge, huge difference.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
So I'm
that's
not,
funny.
and again, so again, I'm not telling people to do that, but that's the single biggest thing is HGH levels. Okay. And guys, I looked this up. So I looked this up because I was curious. If you're an 18-year-old male, with good genetics, you're producing 4 to 5 IUs of HGH every single day. Okay. So guess what? You're not storing much fat, okay? If any. So
Dude,
having said
when
that,
I was younger, I would literally eat whatever I want, and my abs were popping out. Like it was your HGH levels when you're young are super high, and it's funny that you say that because when you tell people this, they're like, "Oh, I would burn so much fat when I was younger. I could eat whatever I want." It's like, no, dude, it's because your HGH levels. If we were to
yeah,
tell them that, explain it, they'll think we're crazy.
you're the same body. You're saying, "Oh, I was working out more." No. In a lot of cases, these older people, they're on the treadmill all day and they don't burn the fat off. But anyways, forget it. So
Yeah.
so that's the single most important thing. I'm going to touch on training and nutrition real quick too. So in terms of training, but the HGH, that's the biggest thing. In terms of training, most people train like a wimp. Okay, they go into the gym and they train like all these isolation The isolation should be the minor thing. When you go to the gym, you need to train compounds, heavy, intense. Okay. You know, that's just I know people don't like to do compound lifts these days, you know, because it's just they're hard. But that's the main thing is that
Yep.
the compound lifts also, guys, compound lifts stimulate like 5 times more HGH release than isolation do. Okay, because they're hard. All right, you work more muscle groups. So, you know, people in terms of training, I and you could be, you know, not just bodybuilding, fitness, athletics. The compounds are the key. Compound lifts, whatever compound lifts you can do with the most weight, heavy, hardcore to failure. Use spotters, train hard. You know, it's something our generation does not understand anymore. You know, because
No.
everybody's on Snapchat and just doing, you know, pump work. But you know, so compounds, hardcore, heavy to failure, train intense. And you know, most people honestly don't even need to do you know, like barely any isolation work if we're unless we're talking bicep, tricep, calves are working directly. You know, it should be pretty much all your workout should be compounds anyway. So that's on the training front. On nutrition front, the nutrition thing, honestly, guys, put it this way, guys. You know, protein, if you're whatever's protein in your diet, the protein will not be stored into fat. Why? Because whatever excess protein you eat, you're just going to metabolize that and excrete that as in your urine as waste, urea, if I'm not mistaken. So if you're eating pure protein, like you get my protein or whatever, your body's just going to burn off or just going to excrete what you don't need. Okay. It's almost impossible. It's like 99% literally almost impossible to store protein into fat. Why? Because your body would first have to take the protein, convert that excess protein into glucose, and then it has to work to change the glucose into fat. It's extremely difficult. So that's, you know, the protein. Don't even worry about the protein. Keep your protein intake high. You know, 1 to 1.5 grams per pound of body weight for bodybuilding, fitness, athletics. It's a range because not everybody's trying to bodybuild. I understand that. And also, you know, if you're going carnivore like me, then you can even increase that even higher. Okay.
Yep.
Having, you know, 1.7, whatever.
Yeah.
But having said that, the big reason why people can't lose weight and they get fat is they're not eating correctly in terms of protein. But the biggest thing is the carbohydrates. And no, guys, I'm just going to go on the record and say this: carbohydrates don't make you fat. No, carbohydrates don't make you fat. The issue I have with carbohydrates is not because I hate carbohydrates. The issue with carbohydrates is that let's take 100 grams of carbs to, well, let's take an amount of carbs. Let's say 200 calories worth of carbs versus 200 calories worth of fat. Okay, let's compare the two for a second. They both have the same amount of calories, but what's the problem with carbs? You take in the carbs, they're going to, even if they're complex carbs, they're going to metabolize twice as fast, two to 3 to 4 times as fast in the human body than when you take in fat. Fat is super slowly absorbed. So what's the problem is that you take in carbs. Guess what? If your body does not need that carbohydrate at the exact moment it's in the bloodstream, guess where it's getting stored? It's getting stored into either muscle or fat tissue. And a lot of times it's going to be fat tissue, unfortunately. Okay. So the benefit of going low carb, and most people ate way too many carbs, way too many carbs.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with carbs intrinsically. The issue is that carbs have to be utilized immediately. Okay, the body absorbs them and utilizes them immediately versus with fat. The beauty with fat is that if I eat a fat steak, guess what? That I can be absorbing that for like up to 8 hours versus the carbs.
Keeps you full longer. It keeps you full
Yeah,
longer.
yeah.
You get hungry.
But the thing is that like let's just compare the fat to carb absorption, even if it's a longer, like oatmeal or something, right? Look at so the carbs are going to be absorbed into the bloodstream. You can't control your digestive tract. That's just how it works. But the carbs are going to be absorbed super fast, and you know they're going to be absorbed super fast. Even if it's a longer acting carbs, like let's say cold potatoes or oatmeal, whole old fashioned oats, that's going to be absorbed completely within 3 to 4 hours. Fats up to 8 hours. So what's the difference is that the calories are getting dispersed at a much slower rate, thereby making it so that you're way less likely to have too much energy and stored into fat tissue. So that's the beauty is that the nice thing about fats. And people's metabolisms are broken nowadays because they have too many carbs. But the bottom line, guys, is that the best thing you can do to fix your metabolism and get yourself, first off, high protein, low or no carbs even. And then the best thing you could do to fix your broken metabolism, because people's metabolisms are all broken because they slam carbs and sugar all day, every day. The best thing you can do besides high protein, low carbs is intermittent fasting. You want to fix your metabolism, intermittent fast. It'll bring your insulin levels way down. And not only does it bring your insulin levels way down, but what you can actually do is, because I'm on carnivore, I only eat meat and eggs basically right now. I've talked about the performance benefit, but people say, well, how do you have energy without carbs? I'm not really without carbs, because even if I eat zero carbs, your body will just make whatever glucose it needs from protein and fat, and your body can make carbs from fat. And people say, well, that's what about, the science? We don't have much science to back that. Guys, your body can turn carbohydrates directly into fat. So of course it can turn it back into carbs. I mean, we just don't have that much data on that yet. But that's honestly, guys, the human body is amazing in that respect. And then also the mitochondria inside your cell, which is basically like the power station of the cell. Long story short, but when you're eating tons of carbs, having sodas and donuts, and you're just feeding carbs around the clock, your mitochondria is actually super small because it doesn't need to work hard to break down the carbs, because carbs are super easy it's like kindling. It's not like throwing logs in the fire. But what happens is when you go low carb or carnivore, the body says, well, okay, we got all this, we got very little carbs, we got all this fat. Guess what? The mitochondria actually hypertrophies. It gets bigger. It hypertrophies the same as your muscles. So now guess what? You can burn fat like nobody's business. This takes time, but it takes maybe a couple of months. But the thing is that if we look at performance, let's look at performance real quick. Let me just ask you guys this, because people say, oh, you need carbs for performance. That's what I thought, because that's what, running, bodybuilding, any sport, people think you need tons of carbs. Let me just ask you this question. Gram per gram, 1 gram of carbs versus 1 gram of fat, just comparing it. All right. 1 gram of each, gram per gram. Which has more energy? Fat does, over double. So each gram of fat contains over twice as much energy, just pure energy, than carbs. So, in terms of an energy source, if you can burn, let's just hypothetically, if you can burn fat, like good fat, like fat off a steak, whatever. Let's say you can burn healthy fats, saturated fat is healthy, by the way. And get into, you have to explain that in another video, but let's say sure. 1 gram of fat from a steak or whatever, a gram of fat versus a gram of carbs. Which has more energy? Well, the fat, obviously, over double. Okay. That's like running on jet fuel versus, this stuff that you get at the pump for your car. But people will say, well, the problem is that fat burns more slowly. But you guys don't understand that. People don't, when they say that, they don't understand something. If we're talking about just pure athletic performance for any sport, right? They say, okay, well, they'll agree. Oh, well, yeah, fat is a much more powerful fuel source, has 9 calories per gram versus carbs only 4. But carbs are burned way faster. But here's the thing, guys. You can change how fast your body burns fat. They have medical studies on that. If I am fat, like let's say I just do carnivore, I'm going to compare myself to the American population, right? I'm just doing carnivore. I'm probably, and you can look at the medical studies in this, I'm probably burning, my body's ability to burn fat gram per gram is probably 3 times what the normal population is, because my mitochondria hypertrophies. So it's amazing. The human body, your metabolism will literally increase like I have like a monster metabolism right now, where I can burn fat at a super super rapid rate. So it's kind of, it's amazing. So, you know, everybody will agree, okay, what's the more powerful energy source, carbs or fat? Everyone will say fat, but they say, well, you can't burn it as fast. That's not true. Your body will literally change so it can burn it. And I didn't know this until like 2 months ago, because you have some
Yeah.
people, you have you have
Yeah.
runners now. Runners who used to eat only carbs. Long distance runners, they pound carbs. That's what they've been doing. What they did was they switched them to, you know, carnivore keto, and they found that, I mean, the scientists were like ready to pull their hair out, because they're burning fat 3 times faster now from switching to carnivore and keto than the regular population. So they find out, hey, we want to use fats for fuel instead of carbs because we're faster, and they break records. So it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
There's a few good athletes right now that are doing carnivore.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a guy I know. He's an MMA fighter. His name is Chad Mendez. He switched to
Right.
carnivore, and he's looking jacked. He fought in like bare knuckle boxing. He like knocked a few guys out.
Yeah.
And he switched to carnivore, and he said his performance is better. And a lot of people, you see it a lot more right now with like entrepreneurs, because it gives them that mental edge. But you're seeing athletes switch to carnivore too.
Yeah.
I haven't done
Yeah.
carnivore in a while, guys, but I go low carb, and I agree. Like when you eat a lot of protein, you have a lot more energy. You stay full a lot longer. There's tons of benefits to eating a lot of protein. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and I don't do, you know, this is bad to say, but I don't do carnivore for my health. I do carnivore for the performance gains. I'm stronger, faster on carnivore, and well, you know, I already addressed the carb myth, but people will say, well, I thought you won't look as big and full because of the muscle glycogen. Well, guess what? They did a study on that, and they found that after a couple months, there's no difference between high carb diet and carnivore or keto. Why? Because your body just makes the carbs it needs to keep your muscle glycogen filled out. And I didn't know that either. Because so your body will just take whatever it needs to restock the muscle glycogen. And they also were wondering this too with carnivores like wolves. You know, wolves will chase their prey for hours. And they say, well, how do they do that on zero carbs? Well, what happens is their body is just burning fat and resupplying your glycogen stores as needed. It's crazy. And then the thing is too is that you don't hit a wall. You don't run out of carbs because your body can just resynthesize that from mainly fats and maybe a little protein if need be. So, I mean, this is going to be huge in the coming years, because, you know, the big sell for me is that, you know, if my muscle glycogen's the same on carnivore versus when I was high carb bodybuilding, well, that's huge in terms of how I look. And then also since I tracked my performance, I perform better on carnivore. I said, well, what's the point in me slamming all the carbs then? 500 grams of carbs. You know, and the mental energy is much better. I feel way better mentally. I'm sharper. And that's basically just because your blood sugar is perfectly stable all the time. And then also your insulin levels are way lower. And that also leads into fat storage too. But that's pretty
Yeah.
much all I gotta say on that.